our notion of freedom is individual freedom within limits. That there's a social freedom that requires a restraint on individual freedom, right? So when Greenspan comes to Congress and says, you know, for the last 25 years I made this terrible error. I thought the people on Wall Street were honorable and they wouldn't do something so dishonest as these derivatives. You know, when he did that, it was laughable to me. I wrote this piece in it got published in the Los Angeles Times. It was laughable that a whole economic regulatory approach was founded on this idea that people would be honorable. I mean, it's so, didn't he ever have history? It was pathetic. And so they had an idea, these people have an idea of freedom, these honorable people. Their idea of freedom is these great Americans that run whatever part of these businesses they ran. They had an idea of freedom. Their idea of freedom was to get as much profit as they could. That was recognizing the American dream. The framers would have understood that perfectly. The point is that the society requires restraint on that freedom because their freedom runs in the society's needs or into each of our individual needs, as we can recognize right now. This is an example of freedom gone wild, sponsored by a guy, you know, this guy Greenspan in some ways, or metaphorically and in reality. So we understand that, you know, our system is built toward limiting that kind of freedom. And how Greenspan escaped that and why we ever thought that the Federal Reserve should ever have the power to do that and we should deregulate is so antithetical to the framers thinking about human nature and what we should recognize in human nature. It's simply, it's actionable. Someone ought to sue them for gross stupidity. And so, and arrogance and grandiosity, all these bad things. So that the point about freedom is that our notion of freedom is a different kind of freedom. It isn't about this group winning over another group. It's about forcing consensus and always understanding that you need restraint and recognizing if you don't have restraint, people are going to try to put it over on you. The example that I give on you is, so if I say to a country, if we go to some country, I don't care if it's Iraq or Israel or whatever you want to go, in these countries, it is not, when they say, and culturally we don't understand them, that's partially true and partially not. It is true they want freedom. It's totally true. They all want freedom, but they want freedom to get their way. So the Shiites may want freedom to oppress the Sunnis, and the Sunnis may want freedom to oppress the Shiites. So that's freedom in their mind because they think that's the right thing. Not because they're evil, because they actually think that's virtuous. And the way we understand a free government is that a free government stops that.